What's up, guys? Welcome to Level 1 Gaming's YouTube channel. My name is Old Man Logan, and we are going to be talking about Quantum Error today. And we got a review, another lovely review from Level 1 Gaming. But anyways, so I want to talk, right? Let's get in here a little bit. Let's get in here. It's October. If you're like me, you love horror games. You love getting in your little blanket, sitting on your couch, sipping on some hot cocoa, whatever you guys want to do, right? I do it every year. Every October, I sit here and I play a slew of horror titles. And this October is no different than any other October, right? And that's because we have Quantum Error, right? Quantum Error is coming out officially on the 31st. Our review embargo obviously goes up today, October 30th, and that's what we're here. And so, yeah, if you guys love horror games, if you love those type of styles, if you love Doom 3, Doom 2016, something kind of like that vibe, definitely stick around. Let's talk about Quantum Error. And so, yeah, back in 2020, right, we were graced with a pretty awesome looking trailer for Quantum Error, and it's been a decent chunk of a wait, right? The devs behind Quantum Error, there's only four of them. Great guys. We actually did an interview with them that's on a Level 1 Gaming YouTube channel, talking about Quantum Error and a little bit more, right? So, how could you not be hyped, right? It's a PlayStation 5 exclusive for the time being. It's horror being released right around October, Halloween time, great time. And I love horror FPS games, so this is like right up my alley of something that I'd want. And so while I do still agree with the statement, right, I feel like it's a good mix of between Doom 3 and Doom 2016. Does the delivery of Quantum Error stick up to what it's trying to be? Sometimes it leaves me scratching my head with some of the choices that the developers made with the game. But you can tell that obviously it's being developed by a very passionate group of people. They love what they're doing. They're very wholesome guys. And so that's where I kind of like struggle with doing this review a little bit, right? We had an interview. I spoke and talked to the guys. I've been communicating back and forth with them since the original review period comes up, and kind of got to know them a little bit better. So, but here we are. I'm a critic, right? Might not be a big known critic and stuff like that, but I am a critic of video games. Love them. And so that's what my job is here today to do. And so we got to ask ourselves, does Quantum Error deliver to the player? So one of the things, so I want to talk about the good, right? We're going to talk about the good. We're going to talk about the bad, so on and so forth. Quantum Error is developed on Unreal Engine 5, right? And the game shines a lot in the visual aspects of everything, from the level design to the weapon design, to the details in each level and stuff. Like it actually, in the lighting and stuff like that, it's actually a very, very good looking game, especially being developed by four people, dude. Like I can't express that enough. It is the developers should be proud of what they've accomplished. Whether the outcome of it might not be the best, who knows? But the Unreal Engine 5 definitely, it's a great game that was built for it. The frame rate is very stable, stays at 60 FPS for the most part. I did have some dips towards the end, a little bit that kind of broke from that 60 FPS, but overall performance is great. You'll find yourself, exploring many different corridors. You'll be feeling a little claustrophobic. You'll also get to explore across different planets. The levels can go to different planets like Mars, Neptune, stuff like that. And I dug a lot of the aspects of finding how to get to point A to point B, because like you're obviously you're a firefighter, right? And you get a lot of tools and stuff that a firefighter would have, and I liked using that as a way to explore different rooms, unlocking them, because of the tools that you get from being a firefighter. Kind of gives you a little reward, right, for going and exploring different areas and finding different ways to unlock certain doors. My only gripe about the exploration to the game is the fact that there is not a map that you can just automatically have at any time notice. You have to go to a map kiosk to basically pull up a map of the area that you're in. And sometimes that felt like that pulled you out of it a little bit, because you're like, oh crap, if you get lost, if you get turned around, if you're not sure what direction to go or how to get somewhere, you kind of had to backtrack and find a map point, a map access point, and be able to kind of look there and kind of map out what you're going. I get what they were doing with them, but I feel like if you had a more on-demand map that you could just pull up at any time would probably have made a little bit of a better flow for the game. Like I said, there's doors that are blocked off by certain elements, certain sections. There's like electricity, there's water, there's fire, and you got to use the tools basically that you're given to kind of like get around those obstacles. So I liked if there was like rooms that you could put your hand up against and see if it was safe to go to, you know, kind of like what a firefighter would do. And if you pried the door open while there's smoke and explosions and stuff about to happen, you end up obviously inevitably dying when you try to pry open the door. But it was cool to like go and be like, okay, well, how do I lower the pressure of this room so I can explore it? What's the tools that I need? So whether you got to go up into the, like, find wherever the vents are located at, go in and kind of use your saw and kind of dig a little areas away to let the gas and the smoke and stuff like that, you know, fume out of the room. I thought that those were very nice additions to the way that you explored it. I also liked with like the water, like the fire. You could either find like fire extinguishers, or you could turn on, you know, like an air hose, like not an air hose, a water hose, and like put out the fire to like advance certain places. You'd also get like your sledgehammer, you get like an axe and stuff like that you could use like knock certain elements in place for certain puzzles and stuff that you would have to do. And so like you get a lot of tools, right? You are a firefighter, and it's cool. I enjoyed the aspects of you as you're traveling and going through the levels and stuff. You would come across people that you could save, and in order to save them, you would have to, like, some people you would have to pull out of smoke and fire, right? They were passed out and succumbed to their injuries, and you would have to pull them out to safety. There's other instances where someone would be trapped, and you would have to do a certain little puzzle, activate certain things while you have enemies coming at you to free that person. You would also come across like, hey, this person is trapped, right? They got electricity, they got stuff going all around them. How do you save them? How do you get to the point where you can get that person safely out of there? And I thought that was like, I like those aspects, right? There's also employees to the Monad, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, I'm sorry, facility that you are playing through in the very beginning of the game that you can escort from, like, you know, one point to the other. And those I really wasn't as big of a fan because like the points that you would take them to kind of didn't make sense. It kind of pulled you out of it. You would take them to like a corner that would just say safe area on the bottom of the floor, and I didn't really feel like I took them to a safe area. I felt like, and they would just like disappear, right? They poof, pop, gone. So like I didn't really like saving those people, so I kind of ignored them. I'm not gonna lie, but like the other people, I think I saved everybody possible in the game. I think except for one person, and so I really liked how you could go through and save people and use the tools that that Jacob has, right, to do that, to save them. You kind of felt like a firefighter. You kind of felt like a hero when you would do that, and so like that aspect was pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. And so that is a lot of the good stuff with the game. Now I'm going to talk about some of the not favorable stuff, right? Obviously, critic, reviewer, I can't without a good conscience not talk about the bad, because it is evident, it is there, and it's stuff that may be patched out and may not be. So one of the things that I felt like when I was doing the review stage, right? I'm talking from a reviewer side here because we've had a game for about a week. I felt like I was more doing QA than I was reviewing the game. Right? There's a lot of issues. There was a lot of stuff that I come across. And hopefully some of the issues that I actually, because I've been actively talking to developers and stuff. And hopefully by the time you guys play this game, some of those issues that I had would be fixed. But there's still issues that I feel like that if I didn't find right, or if I didn't, you know, notice or bring attention to it, it would still be in the game. But it's really cool that the devs are responsive to that. But I felt like in the review phase, and more than likely there's going to be probably some people that feel this way when the game comes out, that it's almost like we're QA, or quality assurance for the game. There was a lot of times where enemies would spawn right in front of you, or they would spawn right behind you. The hit detection consistency kind of fell off. It didn't feel like the enemies would take impact, right? You have this arsenal of weapons. You have miniguns, shotguns, rocket launchers, and stuff like that. And you have this arsenal of like powerful weaponry. But at the end of the day, it didn't really feel like they did as much damage as what I feel like they should. So like they were not very responsive to like your attacks, right? I think 1 out of 4 attacks I would get a response from the enemy that said, hey, I'm actually taking damage. And if not, they would just pow through your bullets like nothing was happening to them and end up attacking you, killing you, stuff like that. Some things that like threw me off was if you would dismember someone's arm. All right, there's an enemy that it has like spikes basically for an arm that they can impale you. I would like shoot the arm off and it wouldn't be there, but yet they're still attacking me. And so some stuff like that was a little frustrating, that the response to your damage didn't seem like it had an impact, right? Enemies will kind of like tail it straight to you with and like disregarding their well-being completely in general. Also, like one of the things that I found is the like kind of human-esque enemies in the game. The AI is pretty bad in it, right? When you're fighting them and stuff, they more or so kind of just stay in one spot. They might move around here or there, but they don't seem to be like thinking AI. They more just stand in one spot and shoot at you, and they'll just stay there and take whatever damage it is that you inflict on them. But then there was also this very other frustrating part that's like a horde part, where you got to protect a certain person, and you got waves of enemies coming in, and with that unresponsive to like people's damage on harder difficulties, I would find that the person that I was protecting would just be taking damage as I'm wailing on the enemies to take them out. And that kind of like made things a little bit more difficult and kind of like threw you out, because I'm like, I'm blasting these guys with a shotgun. They should be responding to that damage in some capacity, but they weren't. They were just more standing there wailing on the person I'm protecting till they died. And I was like, oh, this is a little off, right? I will say that there is a plethora of enemies that is in the game. You have spiders, you have kind of a zombie-esque enemy, you have different types of monsters, you got a guy that looks kind of like a bloater. So there is a decent variety of enemies in Quantum Error. It's just that it's almost like it's more of like you don't get introduced to them. So there is some things that people might struggle with. Like I found out there was an invisible enemy in the game, and the only reason that I knew that is because I had to talk to the developers to find out that there is actually an enemy that's killing me in the game, and not that I'm just going crazy thinking that I'm just in a bugged out area of the game. But like I felt like there was a lot of disconnect with the enemies. Sometimes there would be parts where like the people would pair up with the monsters, and it didn't really make sense with the story aspect, because everything would just come to you, right? It didn't matter who it was, what it was, it would come to you. The boss fights, there is some memorable boss fights in the game. One in particular has you going through multiple different areas as you're fighting them. I thought that was kind of cool. I liked the end boss fight. I'm not going to talk about it in detail. But so it was almost like 50-50 though, of what was kind of memorable and what really wasn't. It kind of seemed like the one boss fight where you go through multiple areas and stuff was kind of like they're like, hey, this is the big one, and it's not the end of the game that you fight this boss. So it was almost like they put all their resources and time into this one boss fight, and then some of the other ones kind of seemed like they lacked the same care for, right? So another thing is the story. I know it's supposed to be like a cosmic horror type story. You're playing as a firefighter. His name's Jacob Thomas. You're tasked with helping to assist a Monad quantum research facility that caught fire, and you're basically there helping, put out the fire, helping the attack, what was going on there, and it kind of takes off from there. The story, I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. It was my least favorite part of the game. A lot of the parts that I had issues with was that the story was like lacking. Whether it be like I didn't really care about the characters too much, nor like what is like the main purpose. I still didn't really come out of that like understanding fully what the purpose was. I mean, there was some twist at the end of the game that was actually kind of cool, but I feel like it might have been like something better if it would have been talked about a little bit earlier. But a lot of the cutscenes and stuff kind of threw me off, right? Because a lot of the cutscenes, and mind you, this could go back to the whole, hey, this is a forward development team. You got basically one guy for the most part doing everything with the game, and that kind of shows, right? Because in the cutscenes, it lacks a little, I don't know, flair, a little style, because it just seems like all the cutscenes were very much close-ups of characters' faces with dialogue, and everything else kind of outside of that seemed a little off, right? The way that the sound design was with the cutscenes, it felt like there was no depth, there was no dimensions to the sound. Everything was kind of very flat and in your face. And that might be part of, hey, this is a small team. There's not very many people that can do the amount of stuff. It's almost like Quantum Error is too big for the development team that they have currently right in place. Another thing, I will say, like the voiceovers kind of lacked a little bit. Some of them seemed very monotone in their delivery. I wasn't a big fan. Like, honestly, like if this was like a silent game, it might have been like, or not like a silent game, but like more like silent protagonist with just say you go from point A to point B to do this. I think that would have kept it, and if they would have done it like more all in first person, I think that would have been cooler. But what we kind of got is like these cutscenes that just feel very awkward, and don't look appealing. They don't really drive really anything. Where like if this was just like, hey, go from point A to point B and do all this stuff, like, and kill all these things, I think it would have been cool if they might have did their resources to keep everything in first person. This game does have a first person and a third person view, but I played this game 100% in first person because I wasn't a big fan of the first person, like how you had to aim and stuff. It's one of those things where I just feel like games aren't supposed to do both. They're supposed to do one or the other, not both. Quantum Error, I feel like, is no exception to that. I feel like it playing as a first person shooter is the best way to go about it. I skipped playing it in third person altogether. But regardless of that, another part that I felt like pulled out was like the soundtrack. I have a love and hate relationship with the soundtrack. The music and everything, fantastic, absolutely wonderful. But the way that the music is delivered to the player kind of feels a little bit overbearing, right? You'll just be chilling and going through and exploring and stuff, and you got this womp 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 noise just playing in your headphones on repeat constantly. And it got to a point where like it was a little annoying and kind of pulled you out, because you're like, hey, I'm just exploring. There's nothing really going on. There's nothing. I'm not really fighting anything right now. I'm just exploring, trying to get point A to point B. Can we stop with the music a little bit? So I had some issues with that, and I really much liked when I got to certain areas where the music cut itself and wasn't playing, and it was just silence with me like exploring and doing like, you know, whatever I was needing to do in the game. I liked that better than the constant like sound blare. And obviously, if you're in fights and you're fighting a whole bunch of different enemies, hey, when the music kicked in, it was great. But when you weren't and the music was still kicking in, it just felt like you were just being blared with this bump 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 music. And so basically, when I look at what is kind of holding back Quantum Error, a lot of the bugs. It seems to be like plaguing Quantum Error, whether it be like you fall through the floor. Or, I know that they fixed this one issue where if you were healing, you picked up a fire extinguisher, but hey, that's fixed. But also like the UI, the way that you could swap weapons isn't very well responsive. Also with the aspects of hey, you can't go if you make a manual save, because there's places that in the game where you can make a manual save, but then there's save points later down the road. You can't go back to that manual save. You're stuck in your auto save spot. So like I'd find places where I'd be low on health and an enemy would spawn directly behind me and I would get smacked and die repeatedly, because then I was almost stuck in like a death loop till I had to brute force my way out of there. Like some of that stuff just really pulls you out and really dampers your enjoyment of the game. And it wasn't like something I could be like, okay, hey, I'll go back to my next save, fix my mistakes, show up here with more health and be fine. But I couldn't even do that, right? I couldn't go back to those saves. I couldn't go back and backtrack and recover from that. I had to either brute force my way out of there. Thankfully I did. Thankfully I was able to beat the game, or I was going to have to restart a whole new game, right? Because there was no way out of it. I was stuck. And so there's just a lot of quality of life stuff that's missing in Quantum Error, that I feel like if they would have, paid a little bit more attention, had a little bit more of a group of people that could play test this game, and provide those feedbacks, I think they would have been able to flesh out. But it's just not going to happen at launch, right? The way that fundamentally the enemies are and stuff is already baked into the game. So that's like my biggest gripe, is how the enemies respond to you, the way that the damage you do. And like I said, the overall story wasn't the super greatest story. And just kind of left you really to not super care about what you're doing in the game. You obviously in the game there is like, hey, I can upgrade Jacob's abilities and his health, and I can upgrade his weapons and stuff, and make those more powerful. You do have those options and stuff like that. There is collectibles in the game to find, like you have rubber ducks you can find, you got your fireman suit you can find, that I thought was kind of neat, that some of the stuff does provide benefits to your character as well, whether it's like you receive less damage of certain elements and stuff like that. And then also you have like spacesuits with the same kind of aspect to it. So my final like takeaway is like, while there is a lot of bad in Quantum Error, right? Underneath all the bad, there is good. And some of that bad can probably be patched out, right? But there is no guarantee of patches. There is no guarantee of fixes. So we got to deal with, hey, what's the current state of the game in today's state? There is a good game to be experienced. It's just hunkered down by a lot of quality of life issues, right? With the lack of polish, it kind of pulled me back from having a spectacular time with the title. There's too many issues, right, to really like recommend it and say, hey, go all in and get it right away on day one, because a lot of those issues are just fundamentally baked into the game. My hope for Quantum Error is for the developers to like use this game as a stepping stone, to learn from it, to hone in on their craft for the sequel. Hopefully they get like a bigger budget. Hopefully they get, hire some more talent, maybe expand their team a little bit, because I do have good feelings for the sequel, right? I might not be feeling too hot about the first entry, right, Quantum Error here, but there is going to be an inevitable sequel, which you kind of get a little tidbit of information at the end of this game about what's going to happen. And so I have good feelings about the sequel whenever it does come to fruition. So with that, obviously we're in the integrity corner section of this review, right? The review code was provided by the developers, so shout out to those guys for hitting us up with a review code and allowing us to review the game and get early access to it. My playtime in the game was around 21 hours, because I did beat the game and then started to dabble in New Game Plus for Quantum Error. I did play on Fire Chief difficulty, which, if you didn't know, is the hardest difficulty in the game. And I also got 30 out of the 45 trophies that the game allows you to obtain. And so the last thing that I'm going to say here is, I think my overall review score, I'm going to say, is a 6.5 out of 10. On my scale, that's it's an okay game. It could be better if they get some quality of life updates and stuff, but I got to review it just how it is now. I can't review a game for what it's going to be in the future. But a 6.5, I don't think is a super bad score. I'd put that as a okay score, but I hope that whatever sequel and stuff that we do see later is going to be fantastic. And if you guys like this review, if you guys like this video, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, the like button, all that stuff down below. Keep it here for Level 1 Gaming news, right? For all your reviews, news, all that previews, stuff like that. And my name is Logan, and I'll catch you guys at the next review. Peace.